Hello, everyone, and welcome to Positive Psychology at Johns Hopkins University. My name is Dylan Selterman, and I'll be your instructor for this course. In psychology, we very often focus on things like mental illness and psychopathology. The clinical or medical model of psychology focuses on treatment of ailments. We think about ways to reduce symptoms and put illnesses into remission. In some sense, this is about the dark side of human psychology. Positive psychology, by contrast, is about the light side of human psychology. It's about promoting wellness. In the words of Plato, the purpose of what we do here in education is to find pleasure in the right things. So, positive psychology is really no different from regular psychology, but it does focus on things like joy and cooperation and love rather than anxiety or depression. In this course, we're going to talk about a range of topics that fall within positive psychology. We're going to talk about emotional experiences. We'll focus on positive beliefs, such as optimism and growth mindset. We'll talk about positive motivations that have to do with things like the psychology of work, money, and games. We'll talk about interpersonal relationships and human sexuality. We'll talk about religion, morality, and ethics. And we'll talk about lifestyle and behavioral variables such as yoga and meditation. Importantly, what we do here in positive psychology is based on empirical and quantitative information. This field is a science, and that distinguishes us from humanities fields such as philosophy, and it also distinguishes us from pseudoscience. Part of the goal we have in a course like this is not only to teach you about positive psychology, but also to promote critical thinking. That is, our ability to separate fact from fiction. There's a lot of crappy information out there, especially on the internet, about positive psychology and happiness. For example, many people strive to be happy. The pursuit of happiness is part of our cultural ethos. But scientists have started to question this. Should we be striving for happiness? Is there such a thing as too much happiness? The answer may be yes. Researchers Adam Grant and Barry Schwartz recently wrote an essay in which they argued for balance rather than maximization of happiness. They suggest that, as with most things, too much of happiness can be bad, and we are in a weird culture that seeks to maximize happiness at the expense of other variables that may be just as important, if not more important. In other cultures around the world, rather than pursuing happiness, people are encouraged to pursue contentment and harmony. They're encouraged to pursue things like meaning. And that is what Grant and Schwartz recommend, that people pursue meaningfulness instead of happiness. When people say their lives are meaningful, it's because they feel their lives have purpose, coherence, and worth. In this course, we're going to draw on a lot of the insights from researchers like those, and we're going to be using this textbook, which is by Ed and Robert Diener, called Happiness. You can buy this online or through your bookstore. Before we move on to talk about the content of the course, I would like you to reflect on why you signed up for this course. What are your personal and professional goals? How do you hope to achieve positivity in your life? Pause this video now and take a few minutes to reflect on your personal and professional goals and what tools you feel you need in order to achieve them. This is an element of positive psychology that we'll explore more in depth later in the course that has to do with agency, locus of control, and self-determination. A bit more about me. I am an associate teaching professor here at Johns Hopkins. Before coming here, I taught at the University of Maryland for over 10 years after completing my PhD in social and personality psychology at Stony Brook University. I write a column for Psychology Today called The Resistance Hypothesis, and I co-host a podcast with Manuel Galvan called A Bit More Complicated. Feel free to follow me on social media as well, at Selter Mosby on Twitter and on Instagram. Here are some recent photos of me with my family. In addition to social psychology, my advisors were developmental psychologists who studied infants and children, and my other program mentors were experts in health psychology. So my research interests are pretty diverse and include topics like interpersonal attraction, sex and relationships, patterns of dreaming, happiness and well being, morals and ethics, political psychology, and education. Another thing you might be interested to know about me is that I was, like you are now, a Johns Hopkins undergrad. I went to college here about 20 years ago, so I know what it's like to be a Hopkins student with all of the opportunities, the fun, and yes, also the stress that comes along with it. So if you ever want to chat about anything outside of the course, feel free to reach out anytime. It doesn't have to be psychology related. If you want to talk about your fantasy football team or the new Game of Thrones show or a podcast you're listening to or anything really. Even if we don't meet in person during the summer, we can definitely connect over Zoom. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything, and I'll be happy to speak with you. Aside from that, I do hope you enjoy the course, and if there's anything we can do to improve your experience, please let me know. This course will be organized into a series of 5 modules, one for each week of the course. Each module will have a set of videos that I've created, just like this one, to go along with the textbook readings. Each mini lecture is short, typically between 5 to 10 minutes, and no more than 15 minutes each. Participation in this course will primarily happen with the Canvas discussion threads. There are 3 types of discussion threads, and you will be expected to post every week to each of the 3 threads. Over 5 weeks in total, that comes out to 15 posts, and this will be worth 15% of your overall course grade, i.e., 1% per post. The first category of posting is positive psychology journaling. In this thread, you can describe something from the course that you've applied to your life in an effort to improve some aspect of well being or happiness or positive inclinations. For example, maybe you tried gratitude, yoga, calling an old friend to catch up. Write about your experience with this. Did doing this improve something in your life? In what way? Did it last? Are you intending to keep this in your regular routine? The second category is positive psychology in the media. In this thread, please share an instance from mainstream journalism or alternative media, such as blog posts or TikTok videos, in which the writer or speaker is describing some idea about positive psychology. Use this as an opportunity to critique what they're saying. Is it accurate? Does it make sense? Are you skeptical? For instance, some have suggested that spending time near water is good for well being based on a recent study. But is that the right interpretation of the study? Perhaps not. Finally, the third category is curious minds. In this thread, you should describe what you're curious to learn more about, and this should stem from the research findings discussed in the course. In other words, you should comment on unanswered questions that positive psychology research has not resolved yet. For instance, what explains the progress paradox? Why are people less happy today despite advances in medicine, technology, and safety? Using the tools from the Greater Good Science Center, you will complete 5 self-guided exercises, one per week throughout the course. You must complete one of these each week, and each exercise varies in their duration and their content. For example, some of them focus on forgiveness, optimism, etc. Following each exercise, you need to write a half a page to 1 page reflection on your experience and what you learned by doing the exercise, which you can submit on the Canvas assignment page. A full list of available learning exercises can be found on the Greater Good Science Center website. The independent exercises will be each worth 5% of your grade for a total of 25%. Even though the course is designed to be asynchronous to accommodate student schedules, we also offer optional synchronous interactive activities over Zoom with the undergraduate TAs. Ideally, these activities will be done with a group of students together rather than individually. Each week, the TAs will offer several activities on different days and times, with our schedule to be announced. If you complete one of these activities, it will replace one of the required learning exercises. So, if you complete 5 synchronous Zoom activities, you don't have to complete any of the independent learning exercises. Therefore, they are potentially each worth 5% for a total of 25% on your course grade. You can also mix and match. For example, 2 independent positive psychology exercises and 3 synchronous activities for a total of 5. Using another set of tools from the Greater Good Science Center, you will also complete 5 self-assessments, one per week throughout the course. You must complete one of these each week. They are labeled as quizzes on the website, but don't worry, you won't be evaluated based on a score because there are no correct answers. The questions prompt you to answer honestly about your own subjective experience. Each quiz varies in their focus, for example, awe, compassionate love, etc. Following each self assessment, you will write half a page reflection on what you learned about yourself, which you can also submit on the Canvas assignment page. A full list of available self assessments can be found on the Greater Good Science Center website. These will be worth each 2% for a total of 10% on your course grade. There will also be 5 at home quizzes covering the course material. The format will be auto graded, for example, multiple choice, matching, fill in the blank. The quizzes will cover course material presented in the videos and the textbook readings. There is substantial overlap between the videos and readings. The quizzes are not cumulative, although some concepts may reappear on multiple units. All quizzes will be open book, but you're not permitted to work collaboratively on quizzes. They must be completed individually. If you wish to collaborate with other students, then my recommendation is for you to form study groups and create shared study guides. Each quiz will be worth 10% of your overall course grade for a total of 50%, and each quiz will be due on Sundays at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and will cover the previous week's material. In terms of extra credit, one option I offer for students is to create memes for positive psychology content. I have some examples on the syllabus, and you can submit a few of those for extra credit on your course grade. In terms of my overall expectations for students in the course, I want you to log into Canvas every day and contribute to the discussion threads, watch instructional videos, read the textbook chapters, complete the weekly quizzes that are due on Sundays at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and to complete the positive psychology exercises and self-assessments through the Greater Good Science Center. All right, that's it for now. In the next video, we'll dive right into the content about positive psychology and the scientific method. See you there.